ES Audio.
From the Evening Standard in London, I'm Rochelle Travers, and this is The Leader. Warning, this episode contains strong language as well as major spoilers for Living Plus, episode 6 of the final season of Succession. Everyone seems to be unravelling in Succession. This week's episode was all about Waystar's new project, Living Plus, a real estate programme for the elderly that combines entertainment, security, care, and even potentially eternal life. Or something like that anyway. Whatever it is, the company's likely soon-to-be owner, Lucas Matson, doesn't want it on the books regardless. But the interim CEO bros are making some bold and very questionable moves. Multiple firings, cool new rules, and a very high-risk speech. There's also a creepy comeback of sorts. A deep fake Logan Roy. Because as Kendall said, big shoes. Every Tuesday until the final of Succession, we'll be reviewing each episode after it drops on the Leader podcast. Be sure to listen to hear analysis, insight, and general fandom around one of the most talked about TV series ever. Joining me this week are...
I'm Elizabeth Gregory, I'm a culture writer.
And I'm Hamish MacBain, Deputy Editor of ES Magazine.
So, Season 4, Episode 6, Living Plus. Liz, can you just give us a summary of what happened?
Yep, so this week all of the head honchos from Waystar Royco went over to LA to launch a new product called Living Plus, which is kind of luxurious retirement homes. And that was basically it. It was like the whole episode was about the run-up to Kendall giving this presentation. It was about him and Roman kind of navigating as CEOs, and they did quite a bad job, really. And yeah, that was it.
So, Hamish, Living Plus, what is it exactly? Can you define what Living Plus is, first of all?
Well, there were a number of quite amusing descriptions of it. Shiv called it prison camps for grannies.
Yeah.
Matson did a great little speech where he said, hey, you know how shitty and horrible cruises are? Imagine that, but you're like on land, basically. Kendall was, I can't remember the Kendall quote, but there was quite a mean Kendall quote as well. But yeah, basically it's retirement. It's retirement homes made techie and...
with like entertainment merged.
But I mean, I think the thing for me is that by the end of it, I sort of was thinking this isn't really that ridiculous a proposition when you consider that gyms are now being sold to us as nightclubs, basically. Mm-hmm. Anyone who's listening to this who is a member of a gym in London, they're basically being – it's all, you're part of the family and, you know, all this kind of stuff, which is quite silly. What it was it just seemed like a kind of very 2023 pitch, as in it's solutionism really, as in it's solving a problem that isn't really there. Mm. And sexing up something that is basically not very sexy. And I was blown away by his thing. It was kind of batshit and silly and unbelievably cheesy and corny. But by the end, it did, you know, it had kind of worked. You'd sort of bought into this concept that he was selling.
Did you think it was a good idea, Liz?
Yeah, it was fine, but I'm not as kind of convinced by Kendall as Hamish is. At all. At the end of the...
You weren't won over by the speech?
And at the end of the presentation, when he went back in the room, I thought everyone was faking it and saying to him, like, oh, yeah, you did an okay job, like kind of just didn't to make him feel good. I didn't think they were convinced at all, whereas I read your review, Hamish, and you said he did a great job.
Well, I think the stock prices went up, didn't they? Which is at the end of the day is all that they really care about. Something that occurred to me afterwards was that Shiv was basically telling Matson to kill it and then telling Matson to not kill it. So basically, Shiv was far more in charge, as in she's got Matson under her finger to a certain extent.
He certainly looked like, you know, when he got on the plane. Mm. Also, where were they when that happened? You know, because she was refueling. It's like, does that happen all the time with billionaires that they just end up on the same kind of tarmac?
Maybe, or the private jets go past each other.
Just like, oh, hey, you know. But anyway, when he got on the plane, he flashed her this look that was very kind of like he liked her. Did he? Do you remember it? It was like, it looked like someone who really liked somebody else.
I don't know, like, because maybe, I think because of what we were speaking about last week, and he's like the master manipulator and everything, I didn't know whether, because there's a limited amount of what he can actually do at this point before he properly takes over, or if he does manage to take over. I wonder if we're still in that period where he could still be manipulating her ultimately.
Possibly, but I agree with Liz that it does seem like he is a little bit smitten with her. And we know that he has a track record of just being strange, to say the least, and jumping into relationships that are probably not appropriate or wise when you are considering a multi-billion-pound takeover of somebody's company. Yeah. But it definitely felt, I mean, whether he's that smart or not remains to be seen, but it certainly felt very, very flirtatious. The little backwards swagger that he did and then blew her a kiss was, it's very flirty. But yes, regarding Kendall's thing, I think that the team, but the senior team are all clearly horrified by it. And I don't think that it's the introduction of Kendall, the business genius. I just think as a one-off speech, it kind of did the job. When he came onto that stage, everybody was expecting the rap from season 2, part 2, basically. Right. But it sort of worked in its own really weird, odd way.
Yeah, and I will say that he managed the Matsson tweet incredibly well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Like, he could have reacted badly to that. He kind of didn't completely disparage Matsson, but at the same time, he managed to create a little bit of space between them. So, which was quite skillful. And I agree that he didn't seem as nutty as we all thought he was going to be. But the thing with the dad, like talking to his dad back and forth and almost crying when he said, I'd love another day with my dad. It felt incredibly vulnerable.
I don't know. I sort of found that like he was being emotionally manipulative in terms of a pitch.
Yeah.
As in he was playing up to the cameras, as it were, and utilizing all these things to make it seem like it was a really emotional thing. I don't know. They spent so much time in this episode. If you ask me, too much time. The whole 40 minutes, the first 40 minutes was basically the message is Kendall's gone, to quote Shiv, completely woo-woo. And that's all the first 40 minutes was. And so if we'd thought about it a little bit harder, we probably could have guessed that the writers were doing a big red herring.
What did you guys think of the episode as a whole then? Because I did kind of feel like it could have been a bit of a filler episode potentially.
I totally agree. I found it quite boring, which is a word that I would never usually use for Succession. And obviously because the series is so great, even though it's boring, it's still a great episode. But I just felt like it was lacking the kind of the drama that we'd enjoyed the last 3 episodes in particular, that all of these amazing one-liners, I literally spent the last 3 episodes laughing my head off, whereas this, I just felt it was a bit dry. And so I was trying to work out what the writers were trying to teach us. What do they want us to teach us about Kendall? Okay, so they want to show that he's unraveling and that his father still kind of looms incredibly large in his life, but we already knew that kind of. What are they teaching us about Roman and Shiv? Okay, so Shiv came out on top. So yeah, I was trying to work it out that way. Like, why are they setting this up and what does it mean basically for the next 4 episodes?
Let's go to the ads. Stay there to hear Elizabeth Gregory and Hamish MacBain on where this leaves the power rankings of Succession after this episode. Welcome back. Still with me are the Evening Standard's Elizabeth Gregory and Hamish MacBain. Liz, I know you're always a big fan of Kendall, but if you didn't think his speech went very well, where do you think he is in the power rankings? And is he number 1 at the moment, or what do you think?
No, I bumped him right down this week. So it's Shiv at number 1, Matsson number 2, Jerry number 3, then Roman, then Kendall. That's how I put it. What do you think, Hamish?
I agree with the top 3, definitely. I definitely think Shiv...
Is Jerry top 3, though? She was sacked.
But I think Jerry...
Right.
but I agree because I think that Jerry is rated by Shiv, and Shiv is basically Shiv could tell Matsson to go and jump off a mountain, and I feel like he would stand a reasonable chance of doing it. So I do think that Shiv is, albeit subtly, in the driving seat here. Matsson obviously is the guy who is going to be taking over. And Jerry is rated by Shiv and Matsson.
And by all of the cronies as well. She just seems like across the board, everybody kind of appreciates her and understands that she's the best.
So yeah, I would definitely agree with the top three. I would say that I think long term, if we're talking about at the end of this episode, I would say Kendall's probably fourth, but likely to blow up as a result of this minor success. Well, I have a little game that we could play, which is that they have released the titles of the next 4 episodes.
Ooh.
So is this a spoiler? I don't know.
They never give us much.
No.
Like the title of this episode was Living Plus.
Yeah.
Would we have known what that meant?
We would have been worrying about something weird they're going to do to Logan.
Like the permanent deep fake is just always in the boardroom or something.
Exactly.
So episode 7 is called Tailgate Party.
Go on.
I don't know. I'm speculating.
No, with the list.
America Decides is episode 8.
Okay, so
that will
be about his election.
That will be the election.
So tailgating in America, isn't that when there's a big game on and then people sort of park their cars up and they have barbecues outside their cars and it's a big sort of pre-game thing before a big football tournament.
Right, okay.
So there's something similar they do around elections maybe? That's my shot in the dark.
It's not a bad one. Not a bad one. Then after that, you have Church and State, episode 9.
So is that just the president getting sworn in, maybe?
Yeah.
Or the president is elected, I suppose.
And then the last ever episode of Succession is going to be called With Eyes Open.
Ooh.
So who knows? But I mean, bear in mind that the episode in which Logan died was called Connor's Wedding.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So they obviously are going to red herring us, and we shouldn't really be reading a great deal into the 2 words of title.
Yeah, With Eyes Open, it's there's a betrayal that's going to happen, but is that going to be that surprising in Succession? I expect it to happen.
But America Decides, that suggests that we are going to see an election.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting to ponder.
Yeah.
In terms of what's going to happen to Connor.
Succession is available to watch in the UK on Sky Atlantic and Now. And that's it from this episode. We'll be back next Tuesday with more Succession Insight. The Leader podcast is back tomorrow at 4 p.m.